You're listening to 515, the Ultraman podcast, the show that invites you into the lives of people who make up the Ultra family. Here's your host for these conversations, co-race director of Ultraman Canada, Larry Ryan.
Hey, hello, and welcome back, everyone. Today's episode celebrates champions. First, I check in with Kat Zeiler, the women's champion at 2019 UMC. Steve King drops plenty of champion names in Steve King stories. And four-time world champion Leanda Cave is our athlete in profile for the 2021 Ultraman Canada race. In our last episode, we caught up with our 2019 men's champion of Ultraman Canada, Jordan Bryden. Today, we are checking in with our women's champion from 2019, who set an age group record in the 50 to 59 category with a total time of 28 hours, 56 minutes, and 12 seconds. She has competed in multiple Ironman races, including Kona. She participates in a number of marathons as well, including a 3:30 clocking in Boston, which is essentially her hometown marathon. Today, from her home just outside of Boston in Arlington, is Kathryn Zeiler. Welcome to 515. It's good to see you again.
Hey, Larry. Great to see you. I'm so happy to be a part of this podcast. And before we get started, I just want to make a couple notes. One, I want to thank you again for an amazing, amazing race in 2019. We can talk more. I'm sure we're going to talk more about it, but for me, it was the pinnacle of my racing career. And I just, there were fires and kayak issues and all sorts of things that might have derailed the race. And you and Brad, I cannot thank enough for just really guiding us and making sure the race happened. And it was absolutely epic. So thank you again. I also want to just congratulate you on the podcast. I've binged listened to all the episodes you've done before this one, and it is absolutely phenomenal what you're doing with these podcasts. It's been so fun to learn more about Steve and all the people that you've been interviewing, including Jordan. I knew some about Jordan, but not really a lot about his coaching and all of that. So it's just phenomenal. So I congratulate you on the podcast.
Thank you.
And also, I want to dedicate our conversation to Mary Knott, one of my Smash teammates who passed away sadly this year in February in a domestic violence episode. And we miss Mary tremendously, and I'd love to just dedicate our conversation to her.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing that. When I last saw you, you were giving this great speech, telling your journey to Ultraman, praising your coach, Hillary Biscay, and speaking of how at the age of 50, you might be thinking about time to retire from tri. So what's been happening since that time?
Yeah, so I not only broke the women's 50 to 59 record, but I also probably broke the record for the longest speech in the closing ceremony, which I've gotten harassed about at length since then. But it was so great. Yeah, so I did hang up my competitive triathlon spurs after that race, and it's almost 2 years later now, and I can say it was absolutely the right choice for me. I had been racing triathlon for 30 years, close to 30 years, and I had done really everything that I wanted to do in competitive triathlon. I can't say I'll never race a triathlon again, but my goals to train and race to be on the podium, I think, are over. And I'm so appreciative of the decades I had in the sport. So right now I'm working on trying to get my best marathon time. So I haven't given up on the athletic goals. I've just pulled back a little bit on the training so that I can spend more time with my partner, Mark, and spend more time with my friends and, try to achieve some of the other goals that I have in my life. So it's been fantastic.
And you recently brought some new coaches in to help you with this marathon goal. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. What a good choice I made there. So, Hillary Biscay is one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. I've worked with quite a few, and she was just absolutely phenomenal. I knew when I was, when I wanted to do the Ultraman, I looked for the best coach I could find, and I completely nailed it there. And she's just a phenomenal coach. And when I left triathlon training, Well, actually, I started with one of my current coaches, Jess Gumkowski of Yogi Triathlete, a few months before I did the Ultra in July of 2019. So I brought her on as a mindset training coach just so I could get, make sure my head was going to be in the right place when I was racing Ultraman. Of course, it worked a little bit, but it was still very challenging. I've been working with her ever since, just one-on-one with mindset training and really thinking about how mindset training impacts my athletics, but also thinking about how mindset training impacts my life generally. So she's been phenomenal. Her husband, BJ Gumkowski, also with Yogi Triathlete, is now my running coach. I just started working with him in December of this last year, and we've been working together on trying to prepare for a marathon, open marathon. And my current goal is just to get a PR in that distance. So he has been phenomenal. He's a very, very good runner himself, a very good triathlete. He's racing in St. George coming up, so I'll be following him in that race. But they both incorporate mindset training, yoga, in with athletics, and I found those three things just a really great combination. It's working, and I'm feeling better than ever at 50 plus. So it's been really nice.
Yeah, it's an interesting combination of things to put together as a coach. That's quite unique. One of the things I like to discuss when people are willing to do so is how they do deal with their mental health. And so much of being a triathlete is always about the physical training. And people come on and they share lots of ideas about their physical training. Do you think that this practice has helped you in that regard then? You're talking about as a mindset. Do you treat your mental health as part of your training routine?
Yeah, absolutely. I've discovered over the years that what's going on in your mind, both in racing and training, and then just in your life generally, has a huge impact on your results, without a doubt. And I learned that the most intensely during the Ultraman. The Ultraman, you can get physically ready for Ultraman. But because it's a 3-day race, and because there's so many just environmental elements that are at play, it's going to be hot. And then the next day it's going to be really windy, right? And the next day you're going to have to do a lot of hills, running up hills during the run on very, very tired legs, and working with a team, is very different than doing Ironman. It's really a team sport, so having the mental capacity to work with your team and to trust and to, and also just to be in the present moment.
I mentioned that you've run the Boston Marathon before, and you've qualified for it 3 times, I believe. And the last time was in 2014, which was the year after the bombing, of course. And at that time, you were a professor at Georgetown, but I saw on your CV that you were a visiting prof at Boston U. So were you in the Boston area in 2013?
So yeah, actually, I was not in Boston at that time. I was in Washington, D.C. I was still teaching at Georgetown, and I remember hearing the news right before I went out for a long training run. And so I put my earphones into my ears and I listened to the news, and I was running down toward the mall, toward the White House. And there were just, of course, all kinds of military personnel surrounding the White House. It was very surreal. And then I ran down on a peninsula in the river, in the Potomac River, with a golf course, and it was very quiet. There was nobody down there, and I just ran around that peninsula, and it was surreal. And it was so sad. I felt like part of my heart had been ripped out, because it was our race. it's our race, and then it just got turned into this terrorist location, and it was devastating, absolutely devastating.
And what was the vibe like in 2014? So the year after, you're back there racing again. Was it noticeably different from the other ones that you did?
Absolutely. It was unbelievable. In my own heart, I came, I was here and I came up to Boston and I went to the expo the day before and I went to the finish line. And there was very much a sense of like, we are taking this race back. This is our race. We are taking it back. You cannot have it. We are going to go on. We are not afraid. We're not afraid. We're going to come out there. You cannot keep us from celebrating life during this race. It's not going to work what you're doing. And there were, I would say, Larry, I'm sure there's statistics somewhere on this, but there were probably, it felt like about twice as many people out spectating. Which
normally has a ton of spectators to begin with.
Absolutely. It's just absolutely crazy in normal years. And there were a lot of military personnel. It was very, you could feel the extra security. It was everywhere, but the people didn't care. And it was so epic. It was one of the most amazing races of my life, just to see people coming out and not cowering, not giving into what the terrorists want us to do, which is be afraid to come out. And it was such a feeling of community and rising above. It was so incredible.
Yeah, I could only imagine what it was like. When you gave your speech at Ultraman, you definitely spent a good amount of time giving a lot of your credit to Hillary Biscay for helping you to get to that finish line. Obviously, being an Ultraman world champion herself, she was able to give you probably some very great insights on how to train and prepare mentally, as we talked about, how to race, how to recover in the evenings and things like that. I always want to share with people that are now training for the race those sorts of tips. So what can you pass on that you felt was really helpful for the people that are coming up and doing the race now?
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend, if you want to do this, trying to find a very good coach that has experience racing these distance races. I thought it made a huge difference for me. So in just training wise, I think Hillary is very good. And she herself did a lot of racing. She would race 6 to 9 Ironmans a year. She raced a lot. And that's what was one of the things we changed right away in my racing. I worked with her for 3 years, just race more. And she was able to, have all these races on your calendar, training you to get ready for these races. But the key was keeping me injury free. I had not one injury in those 3 years that I trained with her. So she's very good with, about, keeping you at race level, but getting the recovery in there, the rest that you need, and using the swimming as recovery, and absolutely phenomenal. When it came to Ultraman, the training was really on point. The back-to-back-to-backs, 3 days in a row. I did that for multiple weeks, like really heavy 3 days in a row. A lot of swimming. I did a 10K swim, once a week for several weeks, just for really that was for me about confidence. Like, I can do a 10K swim. I've done 10K swims in the last, 3 months. I can do a 10K swim. This is not good. This is going to be okay. So that was great. And then just with respect to the logistics, the Ironman has logistics, and you have to have everything, all your ducks in a row, and really plan your nutrition. But this was just the next level up, where you have to think about your sleep, how you recover in the evenings, so it was just, we had it down to what's going to happen in this hour. What are you going to do when you get off the bike? What are you going to do as you're going home in the car? What are you going to be doing? What are you going to do when you get back to the house? What are you going to be eating? We just had everything very scheduled. And for me, that worked. And then you have to be fluid with respect to how you feel, just be really, again, checking in with how you feel. But if you don't feel like eating, you can't not eat. You just have to eat. You just have to keep eating and eating. And on the bike during the day, you just really have to fuel for that moment, for the next day, for the day after that, and just keep the calories going in as much as possible. But otherwise, I think trusting your intuition and, making those small adjustments. But, and also I think just reminding me that I should be in charge of nothing, so I was my team, my crew, which is another, amazing part of this whole story. Mm-hmm. Mark and Melanie and Taryn, oh my gosh, they were absolutely phenomenal. They put me in charge on day one of just remembering my wetsuit. Like, Zeiler, you just have to pick up your wetsuit on the way out the door. That's your job. And I forgot the wetsuit. So we had to turn around and go back, but it was fine because we left plenty of time for like things to go wrong. But and then it was after that, it was like, Zeiler's not in charge of anything. She's just going to go along for the ride, and that was perfect. Just making sure the team was understood what had to be done from a day-to-day basis. So Hillary was great with that. Just all the questions, every question I had, and materials and schedules and plans. And, we wrote it all out. We had shared documents where everyone was just on the same page. And that worked really well.
Yeah. And you were lucky to have someone with you who knows you quite well as your crew chief. But how did you go about choosing your crew and then deciding what each of their roles would be on the team? And did that, like most things in Ultraman, change as the 3 days went on?
Yeah, I mean, this is critical, right? I mean, because you need people who are going to who understand what you're trying to do. So that's how I picked. I mean, Mark was just Mark knows me best. Mark is my partner. We've been together for 15 years, and he has been through a lot of the. We met in 2004. I started Ironman racing in 2008. So he's been around for all of the kind of long course racing. And, he understands my frame of mind. He understands what I need. And he understood how much I wanted to complete this, which was my goal, just to finish. And then Melanie and Taryn were pretty easy choices. I mean, Taryn was a Smash teammate of mine. I trained with her during the training camps. I actually went out to California and spent a week with her training. I feel like she's like my sister. She's like a soulmate for me. She is just, she's been racing a long time. She gets it. She understands, and she loves running. So Mark doesn't run. So I needed, people who are going to be able to run with me. I really felt like I needed to have somebody next to me when I felt like I wanted someone next to me, which was pretty much the whole time during the run. Melanie also is a triathlete, a very accomplished triathlete. She understood, and she understood what I was trying to do. She also understood the nutrition really well. And so they kind of figured out what they each wanted to do, and it worked perfectly. Like, I just let them, I'm like, here's what needs to get done. Now you guys figure it out. And Mark was the navigator. He was driving. Taryn was helping with a lot of the logistics, and also just being an amazing cheerleader. She actually made a giant cardboard cutout of Hillary and put it on a stick and was holding it up as I was riding up the hills. I'm like, is that Hillary? It was just amazing. Just kept my spirits up. And Melanie
is going to join us right now with her crew story. Hers is a bit of a how-to based on their crew experience.
So we came together, we had our own jobs, and we focused on our jobs first and foremost, and then helping each other secondly, because at the end of the day, we had a goal. Our goal was to get our athlete to the finish line as efficiently and effectively as possible. And the best thing we did was we each picked our own roles based on our strengths and weaknesses. And there were three things I think that we really captured as a crew that helped Kat. One is we put somebody in charge of fun, And I think it's so easy, especially for me who was in the numbers doing the data crunching and the nutrition plan, it's so easy to just be internally focused and not externally focused celebrating. And so to have somebody who had the mission of making sure that moments were captured and celebrated was really important. And then we had somebody who was in charge of logistics from a navigation and a safety perspective, and I think that's really important. And then we had somebody who, in this case it was me, was in charge of nutrition. And I think one of the big keys that you want to think about when you're thinking about who's going to handle your nutrition is, one, they've experienced bad nutrition in the past, so they've bonked in a race because they've experienced bad nutrition, so they know what it's like, and they know how to handle changes that are out of your control, how you can change the nutrition to accommodate for those things out of your control. And also, I have a friend who likes to say listening is a full contact sport, of like being able to listen with all of your senses to your athlete and know what you need to tweak in order to ensure that they get to the finish line. And all of this comes down to preparation. Preparation as a team, preparation as individuals on the team, preparation of the athletes. Mindset is such a huge role in getting to the finish line successfully, and that's true of the crew too. So no egos. It's not about you. It's about the athlete. It's about their goals and getting them to achieve those goals, and how can we best do that. And sometimes that involves lying to your athlete, and it's okay because it's all in the best interest of your athlete. And so on that note, I would say to athletes, trust your team, because their goal is to get you to the finish line effectively and efficiently. And if you had the trust to put them on your team, you should have the trust that they will get you there. And then listen to nobody else. No, I'm just kidding. Your team really knows you and your plan. And so I would say to every other team and to the race directors to really give that information that you need to convey to the athlete to the team, so that they can make the best determination as to how to get that information to the athlete. So we were doing this really great job of like feeding the information that Kat needed on the last day, when all the physical is breaking down and you just want to get to the finish line. We were doing a really great job of keeping her spirits up and distracting her and doing all this stuff. And somebody rode by and was like, "You're doing great. You only got another so many miles to the pavement." And it just undid a bunch of stuff that we had been doing because she was so excited to hit that pavement. Unfortunately, it wasn't true. It was another like 20 miles before we got to that pavement, and she was just dying. So know your crew, trust in your crew, just put one foot in front of the other until you get to the finish line. Cheers, y'all.
Thanks, Mel, for sharing your crew story. Now let's get back to Kat.
Melanie really nailed the nutrition, and I don't think I could have performed nearly as well without that help.
And that allows you to focus on moving forward, because you're not thinking about, I have to tell them what I need. They're taking care of you.
It was amazing, Larry. I mean, I would pull up on the bike. I would just get my feet on each side of the bike. And it was like a pit crew. They were pulling stuff out of my back pockets. They were putting stuff in. They were changing up my water bottles. I had the ice, the ice on the neck, it was just like a well-oiled pit crew. It was, I was just like, how is this happening? This is incredible. How did you guys figure this out? But they really, they were just really invested in it. And I cannot thank them enough.
Can you tell us about your first race that your dad took you to, and how that influenced where you are today?
Yeah, we wouldn't be talking if it weren't for that day. So when I was, something like 11 or 12, 10, 11, 12, my younger sister, who I'm super close with, she was 8 or 9 or 10 or something like that. My dad, I don't know why. I don't know what compelled him, but we were super sporty. We played team sports. We were always outside running around, swimming in the pool in the backyard. We were super active. And I don't know why. My dad was not a runner, but he took my sister and I to a race. It must have been a 5K, some short race. And he just put us on the start line. Like there was no preparation. There was no like, this is what we're going to do on Saturday. We just, he just drove us out there and said, all right, so here's the start line. Just run, just follow the signs and run with the people. I'll be here at the end. And so my sister and I just started running, and my sister had a friend with her. So they were tired and they started walking. I was like, I'm going to keep going. I feel good. So I kept trugging along. I was by myself, but I wasn't alone. There were all these people. And as an adult now, when I do these races and you see the kids out there, you always, say, oh, you're doing great. You look amazing. And all these adults were saying, wow, you're incredible. Keep going. I was getting all these cheers. And I just remember, Larry, just thinking, I'm with my people. Like these are my people. Like this is where I want to be. And my sister and her friend got picked up by the SAG wagon, so they came rolling in at the end. But I made it to the finish line, and I just remember this incredible sense of accomplishment, of not knowing what was going to happen, like being very uncertain. Like I'm out here running. I've never done this before. I don't know how far I'm going. Like I had no conception in my mind about what 3 miles was. I had no idea when it was going to come to an end, and I was tired and my legs hurt and everything was sore. But I had so much joy in my heart. I had so much happiness. And I finished, and I remember walking across that finish line and just being like, wow, that was so much fun. And that was really when I just started doing short races and running more, distance. At that time I was running, shorter distances, but like starting to run because it felt good. It felt good. And I felt happy doing it. And running for fitness, as I was going through high school and all of that, but then in college, like starting to run a lot more just for fitness and because I loved it. And it helped me with stress relief. It helped me get out of my seat and away from my studies and away from everything else and just relax and get all the good hormones, flowing through the system and coming back feeling refreshed, like more energy than I had when I left. And then when I went to Indiana University, which is a huge bike town. And so I bought a bike because everyone had a bike and everybody was riding their bikes and the roads were great. There was very little traffic. It was wonderful. And so I started biking, and then I don't even know how I heard about triathlon, but I decided to sign up for a triathlon in Chicago, which is where I was moving to for my first job. But before that triathlon happened, I actually transferred to Southern California, where I had gone the spring break of my senior year of college and totally fell in love with and, wanted to, just try it out down there. So I transferred with the company I was with, and I did my first triathlon, short sprint distance in the Bay in San Diego. It was amazing. And I completely fell in love with triathlon. I just loved, again, I just loved the people. I loved the atmosphere. I loved that everybody was supportive. It was competitive, but people were helpful and, and it was just, I just loved it. I loved the cross training. I loved putting all the three together. I love the technical nature and that you really have to have a strategy and think about nutrition and all that and training and that it was a puzzle to put together. So it really fed like the physical thing I wanted and also the intellectual piece that I thought was really fun to like piece all these parts together and try to optimize, So yeah, that was the start, and that was 1992. So it's been a long, amazing journey that I'm so grateful that I had.
Yeah. And that took you to the heights of Ultraman.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you for giving me so much time today. We've had some great conversation about a number of different topics, and I really appreciate that. It's been really fun to talk with you. So thank you.
It's been such an honor, Larry, to be on the podcast with you and also just to reconnect with you. I'm so grateful to you. And it was so fun to get to know you and Brad and all the other crew. So thank you for putting on a great race. I'm super hopeful that 2021 is going to happen. I will be following every minute of it. And I will be a lifelong subscriber. As long as you do these podcasts, I'll be listening.
All right, that's good. We'll have to have you back one time and check in again.
Awesome. Would love to do it.
Thank you.
And now here's another Steve King story.
So the next person I'm going to introduce to you is originally out of Houston, Texas. And of course, she has raced at the Ironman distance, including Texas, Cozumel, Florida. In 2011, she came to Penticton to do Ultraman Canada and came 6th overall there in the women's division at 31:22:28. And the following year, she returned to Penticton, setting a new personal best of 29:40:57, thereby knocking an hour 42 minutes off her previous clocking and becoming 3rd place overall in the women's division. 2012, also, she went to Hawaii, the Big Island, and finished the event. But on day one, it was a little scary because she finished with just 2 seconds to spare to that 12-hour mark. She was crewed with her friends and also having her mother, Ramona, on her team as well. 2015, she came back once again to Penticton to take on the Ultraman distance event and came 3rd place in the women's division there. And what an interesting race that was, because it was the first time also that a female bested all the men in the field, and that was the Australian Kate Bevilaqua, 1st overall. Since then, one other woman has done that at an Ultraman distance event, and that was the American Amy VanTassel, who did that in Israel. But what was wonderful, too, for this lady I'm introducing you to is that Ultraman Canada finisher and Ultraman Big Island finisher Rick Kent hosted an Ultraman distance race in Texas on 2 occasions. And on both those occasions, the men's winner was Andrew Gale. And on both those occasions, the female winner was the person I'm introducing you to. She loved doing ultras as well, including the Rocky Raccoon 50 miler and ultra distance cycling events like the Triple Bypass Bike Tour. She swum with dolphins on the Big Island, decided in the end to move from Houston to the Big Island, moved to Kona. And now she is assistant race director to Cheryl and Dave Cobb at the Ultraman World Championships. That lady, of course, Ingrid Fieldhouse.
It amazes me how much information Steve King can fit into one of these short stories. Remember, subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these Steve King stories, and so that you don't miss any of our amazing athletes that we speak to. Tell your friends about the podcast too. I'm sure there's people out there that want to hear these stories, want to know about these races, and want to hear from these athletes. Especially those people that aren't in the ultra world yet. Share it with your Ironman friends so that they too can become inspired. And now, our athlete in profile for the Ultraman Canada Race 2021. My guest today is a 4-time world triathlon champion at 4 different distances. In 2002, she won the ITU short course. In 2007, the ITU long distance. In 2012, she won the Ironman 70.3 and the Ironman World Championship, becoming the first woman to win both in the same year. Now retired from professional racing, she is coming to Ultraman Canada in order to qualify for the World Championship in Kona this November. Her goal is to be the first person to win the World Championships at all 5 distances. Joining me today from her home in Miami, Florida, is Leanda Cave. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Larry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Thanks for making the time. You've been retired for a little bit now, but still keeping in touch with your sport, and it's obviously been a part of your life since you were 14 years old. So it's not something that you were just going to walk away from entirely, and we'll get into some of the things that you're still doing around tri in a little bit. But as a lifestyle sport, I'm guessing that you're still training here and there, and it is part of your lifestyle, like buying groceries or taking your dog Fondue for a walk, and it's just something that's built into your everyday. So even though you haven't been racing, knowing that 5th distance is out there, I'm guessing after retirement, it still niggled at you just a little bit that you wanted to get in and get that fifth distance. So what would it mean for you to get that fifth world title?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was just like, it would actually just impress myself, not only the rest of the world, but I think I would just be able to sit back and say that, you know, I've ticked it all off, right? There's nothing left out there. For me, I even when if I kept having a bad race at a destination race or something, I would always go back to like, try and do it until I won. And that was kind of Kona for me, right? And I couldn't leave this stone unturned. I had to do what I wanted to do, and I had to set out to achieve that. So, you know, toying with the idea of Ultraman earlier this year just kind of gave me that sense. Is like, yeah, I've just got there's just something I haven't accomplished yet, and that was this Ultraman distance. Now there have been a few pros who have done it, and I like Dede Greisbauer being one of them, and also Hillary Biscay that I know of, who are both friends of mine. And so I guess in a way they've inspired me to kind of step that distance up to, you know, go a little bit harder, step up to the plate to something even longer, test the human body to, you know, a different level, go beyond what my previous idea of human endurance consisted of, and try for world title number 5.
With Dede, of course, she won Ultraman Florida most recently in 2020 and set an Ultraman world record in doing so for the females, and she was second overall at the race. Hillary is obviously coached other people now as well after her time at it. Our last female champion at Ultraman Canada, Kat Zeiler, was coached by her. And there's also Kate Bevilaqua, who did the 520. And she was first overall in Canada at that race. So when I guess you've probably talked to Dede and Hillary, and there's no shortage of Ultraman people in Florida. What have you learned about stepping up to that distance and what you need to do to prepare for it?
So, you know, I was told that you've really got to do the distance before you go and do the worlds. And that was like, it's something that in my head, I think I can get my head around it. But to me, it was like going into my first Ironman. It's a complete mystery. I did go into my first Ironman, which just happened to be the Ironman World Champs in Kona in 2007. And it was way different than what I thought it was going to be. So the advice I've been told is to like really know what you're in for before you go to the World Champs in Kona. So although I don't think both the races are uniquely different in the fact that Canada is going to be significantly different temperature and weather than Kona. But at the same time, I think I like that variability because I know Kona really well. I know that island probably too well, if I'm honest, especially that stretch from Harvey to Kailua. So, you know, for me, just going somewhere different and having to experience my first Ultraman distance, like Penticton, is actually exciting. I mean, I have raced in Penticton. I was there, I think that was 2017. I think that was also the year I retired, and I did the ITU Long Distance World Championships there. And so I do know a little bit of the geography and the temperature and the lake. So I kind of have an understanding of what the course would be like and some things like that. So that kind of excites me because it's beautiful. I'm really looking forward to being over that course and getting on the course and riding it out. But the distance, that's still freaking me out a little bit.
And they should.
Yeah.
You know, when we look back at these other female pros that have come second overall and first overall, there's no reason not to think that you also probably could not come first overall in Canada and perhaps even in Kona. Is that something that has crossed your mind?
It has. It's just, I'm not putting that expectation on myself. I have literally since retiring from sport, been the least competitive person I know. And I don't want to like kind of ruin it by trying to put labels on what I want to do. And I really just want to keep enjoying it. You know, I feel after I retired, I took some time off, gained not a ton of weight, but like I got pretty out of shape. And then I not only realized like I need to work out, it's just something I need to do, but it's also something I want to do because I missed it. I was not a pleasant person to be around when I wasn't working out. I had all this cooped up energy and anxiety that I had to do sport for to release it. And then, I just like realized there's like this little switch in my head now that it switches off when I'm going too hard. It's like, yeah, no, you got to slow down or stop or, so I don't have this drive to be a competitive person per se in what I do now because of, I think I just did it for too many years. But who knows, right? I haven't actually raced in an event like a triathlon or anything since retiring. So, and Ultraman Penticton will be my first competition since retiring. I've been in like a few running races or whatever, but not serious at all. So this would be like the first serious in exclamation quotes event that I've raced in since retiring. And for me, just keeping it enjoyable is up to that. The race is not going to be enjoyable. I know that, but keeping the process enjoyable is for me the key.
And who knows, like you might be able to go with that and just have a great swim, bike, run, or suddenly that part of your brain might kick in and be like, I'm racing. It's hard to say. And unfortunately, your ability to win outright might have been affected a little bit recently. You've had a little bit of a setback. Do you want to share with the listeners what's happened in your training?
Yeah, so I literally, as we speak, I don't know when you're going to air this, but as we speak, I'm a week into training again after an 8-week hiatus. I do some coaching now, and I was out with doing a private lesson with a cyclist, and we're literally less than a mile from finishing, and we're in the bike lane, actually, not going awfully quick at all. And this car had parked in the bike lane, and literally as I passed him, I swerved out of the bike lane to pass him, and I got to his car door, and he swung it open at that second, and he took me out. And again, I wasn't going fast, but just the impact, like he swung the door open so fast, and I was right there. There was no second to brake. I didn't even see it coming. I just hit the door really awkwardly and came crashing down pretty hard on my left side, and I fractured my pelvis. It wasn't a severe fracture, like it wasn't displaced, but it was a fracture. I mean, I got up and I was like, oh, great, I'm not injured, nothing's broken. And then, the ambulance was there and police. And by the time I got off the floor and after being winded, I was hurting a little bit. And then as the day wore on, I couldn't walk. I was at that point totally unable to get up out of the bed. So I saw straight away, I went in to see the doctor, and I had the x-ray, and unfortunately, I had fractured my pelvis. And I know broken bones. I've had plenty of them through my career, and I knew this straight out is going to be 8 weeks for a heal. So, and just because of where it is, a little fragile, that area, I took the 8 weeks pretty seriously. I even tried to swim early on, and even though that didn't hurt so much with a pool boy, I also landed pretty heavily on my left shoulder and my left rib, and something was up there. So I had to, literally 2 days after the accident, I was in the pool, and then I was back out again. I was like, I couldn't swim for, another 6 weeks. So everything seemed to just start from scratch. But in saying that, I'm hopeful. A week ago, I did my first week back cycling. I did the 50-mile Dolphin Cancer Challenge here in Miami. And it was exhausting and big ride back from 0 to something. But I did it. I did 50 miles and I got through it fine. And since then I did 50 miles this past Saturday. I ran 8 miles yesterday. So I feel like the momentum's getting back. It's just, kind of trying to pull it all together without doing too much too soon, which is probably easy to do given the distance I'm training for. But, you know, I'm just keeping it in perspective and banking on the fact that, okay, I've had 8 weeks off, but I still had a pretty huge engine before I was injured. So hopefully it'll come back pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm sure it will come back for you. It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, yeah, just without the accidents. Yeah.
I always ask the athletes kind of what their favorite races are, because quite often it's something outside of the regular realm of triathlon. And for the listeners, you know, they're always looking for that new cool thing to do or cool race to go to or things like that. What is your favorite races or race that you've participated in?
Going back a while, when I was still racing sort of Olympic distance, I did this race called Schleswig. It's in Germany. It's in Bavaria. It's the most beautiful place in the world to race, and it's super authentic. Like all the men walk around their lederhosen, and the women, you know, run around in the little dresses. And it's real. Like it's real. That's how they dress every day. And you think it's kind of like a fairy tale, but no, that's how life is for them every day. So that was really cool. And the food's amazing. After the race, it's a beautiful hotel. I think it's called the Arabara Sheridan, where the race finishes, and you start at one lake and you ride through the mountains and you finish at another lake. It's super beautiful. So that was one of my favorite races of all time. And one of my other favorite races would be Escape from Alcatraz. I mean, it's not just like this iconic race. I just think where it's held is just, you know, in such a amazing venue. You know, you're right there in the center of like this huge city of San Francisco with the Presidio, and you swim across the bay, and it's got some, you know, like history behind it. It's such a hard, demanding race, and I don't know, just for me, like that appeals to me a lot, and I obviously it helps that I won it a few times, but but yeah, I think that one was also like one of my favorite races. I've always enjoyed it, and maybe that just kind of shows you like the type of athlete I am. I like races that are challenging, right? Like the one I just mentioned in Schleswig, like super challenging. Escape from Alcatraz, super challenging. So I just like the challenge and also like some really strong competition. There was always great athletes who turned up at Alcatraz, and I think for me it was being put into the history books as being one of the winners of this iconic race. So for me, that's also been one of my favorite places to race. Yeah.
And does that one ever get choppy?
Yeah, I mean, I've had every season for that race. I remember one year they had to move it forward because of the America's Cup, and it ended up being in April. And I don't think I can remember swimming in water that cold before. And I don't think I felt my hands or feet for the whole entire bike ride and most of the run. And I think in the last few miles, my feet stopped feeling like tree stumps. I had a terrible race because I don't race well in the cold, although most of the races in San Francisco started cold, but it actually ended up being pretty warm because typically it was in July, or June or July. But yeah, that unfortunately was one of the worst. The water choppy, you know, it is choppy. I'd say 9 times out of 10, you know, it's like it's the same as people come here to Florida and like, oh, let's go to the beach, but it's always windy. It's always choppy. And you're lucky when you get a beautiful, calm day. But it's the same in San Fran. Don't expect a calm day. They expect a choppy day. And if you get a calm day, you're in luck, you know?
I'm surprised that you didn't choose this other race. I've got a little clip of one of your race finishes that I want to play for you. I'm just going to need a second to set this up, and then maybe at the end of it, you can explain what's going on in this race.
Well, you set it up. I'm assuming you're going to say Hawaii Ironman.
You can make that assumption.
As you said, went off very, very quickly indeed. She is now paying for that. She slipped back into third place.
Well, this is not a surprise. Leanda Cave, the form athlete when it comes to distance running, is still a good performance by Fiona May, but I think any moment now she is going to be passed. And these two are well clear of the rest. Annabelle Croft is absolutely dying out there on the golf course. She's only going at half the pace she set up early on. Zoe Baker has moved into fourth place, then McKenna in fifth. But look at this, down the home straight now, and Leanda Cave puts on a bit of a sprint. Fiona May is trying to respond. It's going to be very close at the finish, but Leanda Cave comes away to win the 800 metres, 10 points for her. Fiona May in second place, she gets 7. She's absolutely exhausted. Great performance by Leanda Cave. There is Zoe Baker. She's passed Annabelle Croft. So she timed to finish perfectly. Annabelle Croft.
That's hilarious. Where did you pull up that footage? By the way, please send me that footage after we get off this podcast, because I've never actually seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you that link. There's the entire episode is there. Can you explain to the listener why you were running 800 meters on a golf course?
So this, this goes back. In the UK, I don't even know, like maybe the 50s, 60s, or 70s. I don't even know when. There was this very popular series in the UK that was called the BBC Superstars, or Sports Stars. Hang on, maybe it's Sports Stars. Superstars, right? Yeah. So the BBC Superstars, and it was where a whole bunch of athletes from all different sports got together, and they kind of handicapped athletes based on their strengths and weaknesses, right? And it was hugely popular. It was one of the most popular TV shows. And then it kind of stopped. I don't know why and when. But they decided to bring it back one year. And I don't even know if it's still on right now, but they decided to bring it back. And I was selected amongst some of these other like pretty famous athletes you saw there to compete in the BBC Superstars. Man, I don't even know what year that was, like 2003. Three? Okay. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was in Malaga, Spain. And yeah, we did all sorts of weird things. But for me, I was a triathlete. So they were like, okay, what do we pull Leanda out of? I got to select one sport I definitely did not want to do, which I think was...
Was it the... archery? Did you pull yourself out of archery?
I think I pulled myself out of archery, but I ended up doing things like tennis and what else? Oh,
kayaking.
Kayaking. Oh my God, I was so bad at all these sports, but I ended up doing running and mountain biking. And by the way, I actually was not any good on a mountain bike. Just FYI, you'd think that cycling would transfer over to mountain biking. I just have to say it does not. At least it didn't for me.
You did win the mountain biking event though.
Oh, I did? Okay. But I have to say, it wasn't like as easy as I thought it was going to be. I remember it being really hard. And so the one thing I had was like, okay, I can still run and I can still bike. So I'm like, I actually probably could have a decent chance of winning this. Mm-hmm. But I didn't. But I won that event that you pulled up. So thanks for showing me that. I don't even remember half of this, man. Yeah. Life was a bit of a blur back then. There was so much stuff going on.
Yeah. It was kind of the tennis and the gym test that let you down a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. I probably was last in both of those.
But they, being on the BBC and they like to bet on things. Honest Frank had your odds at 12-1 to win.
Oh wow!
Which was second to Zoe Baker.
Oh really?
So they were pretty close with their odds.
Yeah, I think Zoe. Did she win? I think she won.
Yes, it was Zoe.
Yeah. If anyone doesn't know, she was a Olympian breaststroker, 50-meter breaststroker. She had the world record, I think, at one point for breaststroke.
But it was a tie. It was like an odd tie because they couldn't break it, and the tie went with Leslie McKenna, who was a snowboarder. Oh yes, that's right. I do remember that now. Yeah. And then you got edged out by Annabelle Croft, the tennis player. Right. And you finished in fourth. Somehow finished. Yeah, nice work pulling up that out of the archives. Yeah, I thought you would like that one. And I'll definitely send you that link. Yeah, please do. Yeah. So when I do these interviews with the upcoming athletes, I like to try and highlight a little bit about their sporting background, but then also get to know them in their personal life and what they do, and then what they do outside of triathlon or their training and races. So to get to that part of the interview, I always do something called 2 minutes in transition. And that's just 2 minutes of lightning round questions, and hopefully you can fire back some lightning answers that don't take a whole lot of explanation.
I
you
didn't
ready?
spend about that long in transitions, so yeah, my transitions aren't anything to be proud of.
All right, so here we go. How many bikes do you currently own?
One, but it's broken from crashing. So, yeah, I know, it's embarrassing. I went from being sponsored by like numerous bike companies, and now I don't even have a bike. I'm on a loaner. It's a Cannondale. It's really heavy. It's great. It's great for training. So yeah, I'm training and racing Ultraman, but I don't have a bike. That's awesome, right?
Of course, yeah. When you show up in Penticton, just ask somebody to lend you one.
A loaner? Yeah, I'm getting good at loaners.
So after retiring, what's a piece of gear that you had to buy for the first time in a long time, since you weren't sponsored, that you kind of noticed like, ooh, geez, this is kind of pricey?
Everything. I bought shoes. Okay, I didn't buy the cheapest, but I discovered the Nike, what are the Vaporflies, and they're very expensive. Actually, my boyfriend, our fiance now, bought me them for Christmas. And then I bought some after that. They're really expensive shoes. So, yeah, learning it.
All right. And now the toughest one. In 2012, CNN recognized you as being one of the 10 fittest women in the world.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the other women on that list?
No. Maybe Lindsey Vonn. I don't know. Was she on it?
I think she was, yeah. And the Williams sisters were on there.
Yeah, I was going to say Serena, probably, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so that gets us through the transition round. And one of the things that I would suspect that being one of the fittest women in the world and a pro triathlete is that it's fair to say that you helped to build your sport for women, like as someone to look up to, and I would imagine even for the men, that the way that you perform, that there are people looking up to you all around the world to try and model what you do and be where you are. I know that our 2019 winner, Kat Zeiler, who's also on this same episode, she said that you are definitely one of her inspirations and heroes. So as a person who's now coaching, and you've done a lot of competing, your way to give back to your sport, how do you think it's possible to get more women involved in the sport in general? Like, I'm a high school PE teacher and a coach, and I see it at around age 15 when girls who love sport leave sport. And when we look at triathlon, it's usually about 20% of the field is female. Do you see any way to inspire more young women to take up the sport and stick with it, since it is such a lifestyle sport?
Yeah, look, I think for me, it's always been a matter of exposure and having more women in the media than what the current balance is. I think it's probably 70-30, 70% men, 30% women in media. So the more often, it's like touching points, right? The more women see in the media, especially young girls, that they can relate to, the more often that person will be like, oh, I can pursue a dream. I can go to something bigger and be the best. And I think there's a point where there's a drop off, right? Like when kids start looking in the media at the ages of 15, they're not seeing female role models. They're seeing mostly men and male team sports, male, right? And so it's just a matter of like them seeing a female that they can look up to. And I think from like young girls, it's all about fitting in socially more so than like being in the sport as a social platform. And for me, like, I know you can't believe this now, but I was a very shy kid. I talk for fun now, but back then I didn't say boo to anything. I didn't even talk at all. And I used sport as a currency for my social network and my getting through life, right, at that age. And that gave me the self-esteem and the confidence. And I think having, like, it's just me, for example, being able to relate that and tell my story to young girls that way, it's important. And they can see that, you know, I've grown as not just an athlete, but also as a human, and a strong human and confident human, and not just a human, but a female, right? In a world that's highly, in a profession that's highly dominated by males. Mm-hmm. And so I just think that's probably the key. It's a trickle down effect, and I think it has to start from one thing. And I think that the media plays a huge role in that, especially now with like access to media like we've never had before through phones and things like that. And I think it's becoming like very much more in the young kid, like the young girls who are athletes. They have this access that they never had before to athletes all over the world, young athletes their own age. So they actually have this like platform to see. Whereas before it was only what they saw in magazines or newspapers or on TV, and now they can choose who they see and who they follow. And I think that helps. But, you know, there still is, and it's going to take a long time, and I don't know if it'll ever change to the point where it's equal, you know, male-female participation in sport. But I feel like it's definitely, there's a shift. And I think it's moving in the right direction. It's just slow. It's also, I don't know at the age of 15, but even like when you look even older than that, I don't know, men have this attitude is like, oh yeah, I could do a triathlon. And the girls are like, oh, no, I don't think I'm good enough, right? They play themselves down, whereas guys have this macho attitude and this ego that's like, yeah, I can do that. And I'm definitely more on the male side than the female side. I was like, yeah, I can do that. I remember swinging on the monkey bars when I had no clue and I had no place to be there, thinking I could do like a flip on a monkey bars and land on my legs, on my feet, I should say, and then I ended up on my face. But like I was never the kid who's like, oh, I don't think I can do that. I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go, you know. And but different attitude than a lot of young kids. But I didn't have anyone telling me I couldn't. Right? I grew up in a very unique place, in a unique place, places I should say, right? In a very unique way, and I didn't have this exposure to people saying I can't do things. There was never anyone saying I can't do something, and if they did, I'd just like, well, I'm just going to prove you wrong then, aren't I? You know, mm-hmm. For me, that was my attitude growing up. And, you know, I could go into a long spiel here. I already have.
Well, there's a couple of things I'd like to pull out of your answer there. One is what you've just said about how now we can choose our media a little bit more. And you were saying when you were younger, obviously there was an editor who was choosing what's in the magazine or what's going on TV. And nowadays, everybody has their own Instagram account and things like that. So really, there should be more access for young girls to be able to find the influences out there. Do you think there's a responsibility of women in sport to make that presence felt, or would you be on the side of, well, I'm doing my own thing, I don't need to be a role model? Like, where would you fit in on that idea?
No, I'm 100% I feel like I need to show women I showcase to women, young girls, like what females are capable of. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but like that's one of the reasons I want to do Ultraman, because if I do get the 5th world title, I'll be not only the first female, I'll be the first person, so male or female. Right. So, you know, men seem to be the first to do everything, the first person to go up to get to the top of Mount Everest, male, first person to cross Atlantica, Antarctica on foot, male, all these like things that people do first in the world, they all seem to be male. And I'm like, no, like I'm a female. I can be the first to do something and I'm a female. So that for me is like my way of like saying, no, women are just as capable as males to do some go beyond human endurance and showcase like our strength and our ability to do something incredible. And that's kind of my messaging and where I was coming from when I thought about this really long and hard. I was like, no, this is just not something just personally like I want to achieve, but I really want to emphasize that, from a female perspective, it's huge. It's like being able to achieve something unique in whether male or female, but just in terms of what a human has been able to do and achieve. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of like being a role model for young women and also men. Like men look up to me because of what I've achieved already.
Absolutely.
And I'm not just trying to say like I'm a feminist here, but like what I'm doing is not just huge from a female point of view, but just in general,
Well, I think that you do make a great role model for those younger people that are coming up. And I guess that also connects with one of the other projects that you're working on, and that's an app that allows age groupers or triathletes in general that want to get some extra information about what the pros do and get some inspiration from them. There's an app that you're working with as well called the Credo app that provides this. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is, I have some interesting friends in the sport of triathlon, and one of them is Heath Eskalyo, and he's actually a lawyer by trade profession, and he's a super keen triathlete. He's actually very good in triathlon. Every minute he's not working, he's training, and he's actually a super nice guy. And he came to me with this idea maybe 4 years ago, and he says, "Do you think this would be successful?" And I was like, "Actually, yeah. There's something similar that celebrities have as like A and B list of celebrities. They have this app where they can be doing video calls or whatever and sending out messages, and at the same time, like there's nothing really like that for athletes." And so that was the whole thing, is like, yeah, I think triathletes would be really interested to hear, not just me, but probably not me anymore. I mean, I'm not even around much anymore, but like some really, athletes who are doing really well right now, like Ben Kanute, the Brownlee Brothers, Craig Alexander, although retired, like just hear these athletes, these people that they've only seen in sport racing on TV, like actually hear them talk and have like them answer questions or do a video call with them or something like. So this is where Credo Tri came in, and when you sign up, you get to hear the athlete. You can wake up to a motivational quote by them. When your alarm goes off, you can, if you're about to go for a swim, they'll say, well, here's so-and-so, they'll give you a swim tip. Right. So just all these little personalized touches to getting you more access to the pros, like getting to understand what they think about training, what their life is like, what their personality is like. Like you can see all these athletes on Instagram or whatever, but you can't say to any of these athletes, can you send me a video message or a birthday wish or whatever. Now you can send a message on Credo Tri and say, hey, can you send a message to my friend, or can I ask this question about your running or whatever, and they'll send you a video message in return.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing the way you can get access to people these days with the technology. And you're mentioning all those who's who in triathlon, but when I was looking at the app, I also noticed that they had an Inspires category, where maybe it's not professional triathletes, but there are other people out there that can give you an inspirational message. And one of the people that they noted was Nikic was listed there as one of the people.
The young man with Down syndrome?
Yeah, who just finished the full distance Ironman.
Yeah, he's charming. I've met him a couple of times. Yeah. Like, so they have the athletes, and then they have the, the inspiration. They're all like unique in their own way. We've got like some amputee athletes, war veteran athletes, retired athletes. Hello, that's me. And it's a great list of athletes that you can have access to.
Yeah. And you have one other, like, you're just so busy in this world of coaching and try. You have one other app that you're connected with as well, which I just found fascinating when I started reading about it, because it uses AI and it actually changes your workout for the day based on a daily check-in that you can do, where you can be like, oh, I didn't sleep that well last night. And then boom, it changes your workout for the day to match what's going on in your life. Can you tell us a little bit about Peakers and how it works?
Yeah, so Peakers, I've been with Peakers since it was founded almost 5 years ago now, and I've helped develop this app from the scratch, actually. So, for me, it's really exciting to see where we've been and where we've come, and we've changed the interface so many times, and now it's at a point where it's beautiful to look at and very easy and streamlined to look at. And like you said, you as an athlete, you get your customized workout or customized training plan based around your ability, your race schedule, your days you want to train, all that sort of stuff. And a lot of that's like, there's actually coaches in the background installing those training plans. These are not just like templates that are thrown in and, the coach walks away. No, there's a coach actually putting those in. And that's where you start. And then the athlete starts using this training plan, and then they, like you said, their feedback might be like, oh my gosh, I'm really tired today, or I had, they have high stress level through, whatever, stress from work, from moving house, or whatever. And so, the workout adjusts accordingly with the AI. So what I think is really special about our app for two reasons. Like, one is, a coach, for example, if I'm coaching you, I coach at a high level, so my athletes typically get access to me around the clock. So if there's something going on, we message back and forth, and I'm able to change their training plan pretty much on the fly. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of coaches who dish out like training plans, which are more like, everyone, maybe a lot of people get the same training plan, or maybe not, but the coach checks in with them maybe once a week. Mm-hmm. At best once every other day. If there's something going on in their life, there's no adjustability to that training plan. The athlete just goes, okay, I guess I'm just doing the training, even though I'm really tired, or I've got a really sore shin muscle or shin bone, or something like's going on, like an injury or stress or whatever, right? And that's when you start running into problems as an athlete. Then you either overtrain, or you're running on an injury or whatever. So that's the beauty of Peak, is it just makes those changes like instantly, right? Much quicker than a coach can intervene. And the second thing is, it's not just a coach. Like, you get a
team of people. Exactly.
So you've got a nutritionist in there as well, and a physical therapist. You've got a strength and conditioning coach as well, like PT, nutritionist. So all these people
and a concierge that like keeps it all tied together for you.
Yeah, so it's actually great in the sense that you've kind of got more of a holistic approach to coaching or training as an athlete, as opposed to like, oh, I have to now go find a nutritionist, and now I have to go find a strength and conditioning coach. Oh crap, I'm injured now. I've got to go find a PT. Like, we kind of put this all in the one box.
Mm-hmm. Because this is an AI, that knowledge is all being always built on, and then the next person who comes in is then making it even more intelligent and making it better for the next group.
Yeah, and that's exactly the more this app grows, the more people that come on and use or access this AI platform, the more intelligent it does get. And it's been, like I said, I started 5 years ago, so it's pretty smart right now.
It has your whole brain in it, right?
Yeah, it's really not that great a brain. Not always. When I'm a coach, it is. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm sure it's an amazing coaching brain. And if people want to dig into that brain, you have another thing that you're offering. You recently launched something that you're calling Club Leanda Cave.
Right.
Great job on the branding. Can you tell us more about that? Because it's not your typical coaching situation that you've set up.
No, I mean, it's not a coaching situation at all. We have coaches okay, so by the way, we have members from all over the world. One of my friends from Canada signed up. So Club Leanda Cave embraces a community of triathletes locally here in Miami, but if you're not local, you access the membership and you get the same benefits through a remote access. So coaching, like in terms of like the workouts we do here locally, you get access to those wherever you are in the world. We have a community of athletes, but also my goal is to have a community of coaches. And from what I've experienced as an athlete, I had several decent coaches, very good coaches, in fact, when I was an athlete. And every single one of them gave me something different. Like I learned something different from each coach. And my philosophy is to put these great minds of coaches under one umbrella and allow athletes access to all of them. You know, like I can't tell you or anybody a workout that Manuel Huerta, who's also one of the coaches, he's a 2-time Olympian. I mean, he's learnt things from other coaches as an athlete as well, but now being a coach, he gets to give his knowledge or pass his knowledge along to his athletes. But I don't know what he did as an athlete. I don't know what workouts were the key workouts that made him successful, and probably vice versa, right? So the beauty of what we're doing here is like having these great minds as coaches together under one umbrella and just like having like this open access. So when we do training camps, like having all these coaches come under and like give athletes this knowledge from different perspectives and just like having the coaches help each other, right? Like I'm going to learn from Manny's going to learn from me. We also have like Kris Swarthout, my fiance, Maiko De Andara. Like we have these coaches under this umbrella who get to kind of give their different or put their own impression on coaching, and we all just like pull each other's and each other's brains. So I think what we're trying to create is like something very unique in that way. And I think the beauty of it is athletes get to benefit from so many different perspectives.
Yeah, that's and it's like having your own coaching staff for one athlete. You suddenly have all these perspectives the way a professional team player does, where they have all these extra minds working with them. So it's an interesting concept that you've got there. Let's try and get a little more into your personal life here, so we get to know you a little bit more. You've mentioned a couple times now that you're working with your fiance, who's also coaching. This is a fairly new situation in your life, so I want to know who popped the question and how did it happen?
Yeah, so Michael and I we met last year, and he's actually been the mastermind behind Club Leanda Cave. It was an idea, but he's been the one really pushing and making this whole thing happen. I don't have an ego when it comes to who I am. I have an ego in many things about myself, but of who I am in sport, I'm like, I don't really think. And he's like, oh my God, you're like Leanda Cave. You should be like doing this. Like you have no idea how many people look up to you. And so, he's like, we've got to do this. This is like something you've wanted to do for years. So he's been like trying to push and like put this whole situation together, which we finally did this I think winter. We got it going, maybe actually spring. We finally launched in spring. And yeah, we've been a COVID couple, right? We've lived in each other's pockets since we met. And so it's kind of an accelerated relationship that way. And when did he ask me? He asked me, and that was actually right before Valentine's Day. He didn't want the whole cliche, I'm asking you to marry me on Valentine's Day. So he did it before Valentine's Day. So yeah, I think it was maybe the 12th of February.
Nice. So, and you do a little more about your family, just to get to know you a little bit better. You wrote that you had moved around a fair bit as a child. You come from parents from the UK, but you were living in Australia for a number of years as a child and moved around a lot during that time. What was going on in your family and that you were moving around that much, and how did that influence your sporting life? Because you were saying earlier that was a way for you to get in with friends. So is that something that's happened as a result of all that moving around?
Man, I think we need an extra hour. No, my life was anything but dull as a child. We migrated to Australia when I was 4 from the UK. My parents shipped their caravan over. So we stayed in a youth hostel in Brisbane until our caravan arrived, and the car, actually. They didn't think they sold cars in Australia. I don't know why. But once the car and caravan arrived, they realized, well, we need a bigger car. So they switched the Jag out for a 4x4, Nissan 4x4. And then we took to the road and we started traveling. So we spent 8 years traveling in a caravan, a 19-foot caravan, 3 kids, 2 adults. My parents were chain smokers at the time, which wasn't useful when you're living in this very small confined space.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was really, for me, I was just, shy was an understatement. I was a very insecure child. I had very few friends, very low self-esteem. So I barely met anybody along the way. My sister's different. She was extroverted. She was like meeting people and friends all the way. My brother's similar to me. He's probably a hybrid in between my sister and my sister and I, sorry. And so, we spent years and years doing this, going from place to place. I went to 13 different primary schools.
Amazing.
We finally had to kind of cut the whole thing short, which I was extremely happy about, when my sister needed to be in high school for 2 senior years to be able to go to university. So we cut out the south of Australia. We just beelined across Australia, went through the Nullarbor, back to Cairns, which is where my parents bought some land very early on, so my sister could get into high school. And my brother and sister also ended up going to school there. So that's kind of where the whole caravanning situation ended. We finally, after 10 years in a caravan, because the first 2 years when we moved back, we're still in a caravan. We moved into a house. So
was it just because they wanted to travel? Is that the reason?
Yeah. My parents were dreamers, and at the time there was a bit of a depression in the UK, and they're like, oh, let's go to a more prosperous country, which was Australia, give our family the best chance of, going somewhere in life.
And with your parents coming from the UK and then spending all that time in Oz, did that totally mess up your accent? Do people not know where you're from because it's some kind of hybrid, or? Oh, yeah. I had a very strong Australian accent. In fact, sometimes I think I still do until my parents get on the phone. They're like, oh, you sound American now. I'm like, oh, okay. And then, I'll be in Australia and they're like, oh, you sound British. So I don't know. Yeah.
I'm a mutt. I'm just
Nobody wants to claim you.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've raced for the UK. But your mom is from Wales, and you represented Wales at the Commonwealth Games. Right. I know there are some controversies surrounding how that all works with who you represent. Do you have any preference? Would you rather say that you represent Wales or Great Britain, or how do you feel about it? I was welcomed by the Welsh when I was I was actually in England, and I was asked by the Welsh, do I have any connections to either of my parents? Are either of my parents born in Wales? And I was like, not that I know of. And then my mum's like, I was born in Wales. And I was like, oh, really? And so when I told this to one of the Welsh officials, they're like, oh, you should compete for Wales. And so really it was that simple. So I did. And in all honesty, I really didn't have a chance on being on the English team for the Commonwealth Games, because it was actually stacked full of very strong, fast English women. So, I just had to take the best chance I could of getting to success, right? And the path that I took wasn't in any way dishonest or unethical. It was the path that enabled me to succeed, and in a very legitimate process. So, and you won a Welsh Sports Personality of the Year award as well.
Yeah, somewhere in there, I think I did. I'm not sure. Did I win or did I get nominated? I wasn't sure. I'm not sure. Wow. I got nominated, I think. I got nominated for the Welsh Sports Personality of the Year. Or maybe I was. I think I won the women's. I don't know.
After winning so many things, fittest woman in the world, superstars, it's so hard to keep track of if you win or come fourth.
I think you're right. I think I did. And I think I got nominated for the BBC Sports Personality of the Year. Okay. So, yeah. So I think you're right.
And what country will you list as your team or country you represent when you come to Ultraman Canada?
Actually, I will represent the U.S. I'm a U.S. citizen now. I know it sounds shocking, and all the British people are I think they're about to fall off their chair. But yeah, I was naturalized. I have no plans on leaving the U.S. now. I've lived here since 2000 and I want to say 6 or 7. I think I moved over here, even 7 or 8, maybe something around there. So, almost 12, 13 years. So I would think it's fair to say that I'd be representing the U.S. at this point.
Excellent. Well, Leanda, I'd like to thank you for coming and being the guest and sharing all this background about yourself. It's really the purpose of these athlete profiles is so that every athlete that's listening can hear about all the other athletes and find out who they're going to be racing with when they come to the race. So thank you very much for giving me all this time today.
You're welcome. It's been fun.
Hey, if you liked what you heard today, please tell a friend and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate it if you'd rate and review the show while you're there. Drop the names of the people you think we should interview and we'll get in touch with them and make that happen. Thank you for listening to 515, the Ultraman Podcast, a production of 55 Enterprises brought to you by Ultraman Canada. Now really, go subscribe now before you forget.